Hey, what is up guys? This is Nishi from MST.TV here, back with another Market Watch episode. So YCS Houston was one heck of a weekend. It was definitely one of the craziest YCS events that we've had in the last while. Like, I don't think anyone was expecting Mementoal to win a YCS in a format that has otherwise been dominated by Raziel, Malice, and Mermail. But congratulations to Pascal Manigat, who took down the event. And then of course we have the ban list, which I honestly think might go down as one of the best ban lists that we've ever gotten. Definitely the best within the last few years or so. It really kind of did it all, like bringing back some cool ban cards, hitting the consistency of the top tier decks without taking them out of the format completely, and also effectively getting rid of some of the format's most toxic cards in Abyss Dweller and Dimension Shifter. With that, we are of course seeing a ton of buyouts all over the secondary market as players get ready for the next format. Let's get started. Alright, so to kick things off, we're talking about probably one of the worst price spikes that I've ever seen with Fiendsmith Engraver. So the Fiendsmith engine was very notably not hit on the ban list at all. I know a lot of people wanted Moon to be banned. I thought Requiem was getting banned. Some people thought it'd be lighter and Engraver would be limited or semi-limited, but none of the cards were actually touched. I think the assumption is that Fiendsmith is going to be one of the best engines in the game moving forward, and with Raziel and Malice losing a lot of their starters, players are kind of assuming that they'll make up that space by throwing the Fiendsmith engine back in there, kind of like what we saw at the beginning of the format. So naturally, players are buying up a bunch of Fiendsmith cards, but for some reason, one of their choices was Engraver. Now obviously Engraver is probably the best card for the engine, and it was over $100 at one point. But it seems that people completely forgot that Engraver is actually being included in the Quarter Century Stampede set. Not just that, but it's in the regular 80 card pool. It's not like it's a nostalgia card where it's going to be very difficult to pull from that 200 card pool. You can literally get this card in any of the rarities in the set aside from QCR. We saw last week, I believe, so we were seeing Engraver absolutely tank in price, and I think it was actually down at around $20. Now, however, with the ban list announcement, the card randomly shot back up to $35 each, which I think is absolutely silly. Just wait a week, and you'll be able to buy secret Engravers for probably no more than like $5 a piece. Definitely a weird one, but I did want to highlight this one because I personally think that if you can find someone that actually wants to buy a set of Engravers for like $100 over the course of the next week, you should definitely move them and just buy them back next weekend. Up next, let's take a look at Fiendsmith's Tract. So I do want to note that several pieces of the Fiendsmith engine have spiked. I just didn't want to spend too much time going over each and every card, since a lot of what I'm going to say about them is kind of going to be the same. However, Tract is the one that saw the biggest price spike, as it's something you're generally going to play 2 to 3 copies of, whereas Requiem and Lacrima are generally played at 1, maybe 2 copies. So as we noted with Engraver, the Fiendsmith engine did go untouched on the ban list, and as a result, a bunch of the cards' prices are trending upwards. Tract saw the biggest spike. I think on Sunday night, people were wanting like $80 to $100 per copy of this card. Obviously, that's just a little bit silly. Now the card seems to have settled back down at around $50 to $55, which isn't completely unreasonable. Also worth noting is that Requiem did go from being $5 up to $30, and Lacrima went from $8 up to $20. So jumps all across the board there. We did actually start to see these prices go up before YCS Houston since about Friday. I think Tract was around $25 to $30, but as with every ban list, right, rumors and speculation go flying around, and they do cause movement on the secondary market, but nothing is ever really certain until the ban list officially drops. So with these cards, I think we're all going to be waiting for the rest of the Fiendsmith pieces to be printed. Naturally, the obvious spot for them to be included would be the upcoming Battles of Legend set, even though I'm not sure if there's enough room in there. If not, then the 2025 tins are definitely when the reprints would be due, though if we do get another ban list before then, there's a chance that the engine could be hit by that point. Either way, it seems that the Fiendsmith engine is going to actually remain expensive overall for at least the next couple of months. I do want to take a second to remind all of you to check out our website, MSTmerch.com. Now, over at MSTmerch.com, we have everything that you will need to optimize your Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament experience. We have the basics with white, black, pink, and our new purple matted sleeves, which are my personal favorites, as well as smooth and matted sleeves to double sleeve your valuable cards and sleeves with for tournament play. But we also have some other items that you can really use to customize your collection. We have amazing foil sleeves, including some with the MST.TV logo, and dividers and subdividers so that you can keep your collection perfectly organized and easily accessible. Regardless of if you're a competitive or casual player, I'm certain that you'll find something that you will enjoy over at MSTmerch.com. Alright, the next card I want to talk about is Mementoal Tachyon Combined Creation. I definitely probably botched that pronunciation. There's too many strange letters in a row there. Anyways, aside from the ban list, I think everyone was pretty hyped to see Memento win the event. It was definitely an unexpected performance. The Memento deck is really cool, and I think that at the YCS, the Goblin Biker techs really did help out in a format that is pretty Ryziel heavy. Now, of course, all eyes are on the deck, especially since they obviously didn't get hit. They definitely look like they will be in a good spot going into next format. Now, with Combined Creation, this is the boss monster of the strategy, and it's actually terrifying to see this thing hit the field, since it can attack all of your opponent's monsters, and it has 5,000 attack points as well. With the Memento deck, Anguish and Bone Party were the expensive pieces that were relatively difficult to find before, but they actually got reprinted in Quarter Century Stampede, so Combined Creation is now the most difficult piece of the deck to find. As a result, despite this card just being a one-of, it has spiked in price for all of its different rarities. The QCRs are up super high. The last sold listings say that they're around $50, but the cheapest available right now is about $75. The collector's rare is actually that mid rarity, they're anywhere from 20 to 30, and then we have the ultras as the cheapest printing. Even those are around $20 each, which really just tells us that the card is really difficult to pick up right now. This is another card that we have to hope will be reprinted in Battles of Legend. Even if not, the rest of the deck is actually going to be extremely budget, so picking up a single copy of the boss monster for a little bit higher of a price point really isn't that bad. Next up, talking about a couple of cards freed up by the ban list, we have Brilliant Fusion. So this card is a fusion spell for the Gem Knight strategy. Back in Monarch format, you used to run this card to send Gem Knight Garnet or Gem Knight Lazuli to the graveyard and bring out Seraphinite. Seraphinite was this level 5 body that could be used to make Pleiades, and you could also get an extra normal summon. There was just a lot of really cool synergy between the Monarchs and this Gem Knight package. Of course, the card was limited back in 2019 and then banned in 2020, but the card is now back to limited status. It does make sense, since we are getting some new Gem Knight support in an upcoming set. It was in Terminal World 2 over in the OCG, so it might be in Battles of Legend this year, maybe another side set later on. Anyways, I think the thing that players would be most concerned about is seeing the Gem Knight engine being splashed into other decks, which I don't think is really going to be a problem now. It doesn't make sense to run one Brilliant Fusion, one Brick, and then one spot in the extra deck, all for the ability to potentially like Foolish Burial card and just get out another body, when you're just as likely to draw the Brick as you are Brilliant Fusion. So yeah, definitely an interesting card, but not really one that I would personally be worrying about in terms of meta play. However, the card has jumped up a little bit price-wise. The Ultimate Rare is the highest rarity version of the card. They were around $30 to $35 or so before. They jumped up to $55 or $60 right when the ban list dropped, but they've since settled back down to around $40 to $45. The other nice printing is the Secret Rare. They are only around $5 each right now. And then you have the card's two super rare printings, either of which is still only $1 or $2. Overall, this is more of a niche one that I wouldn't be too worried about scrambling to pick up. Maybe just pick up a couple of supers if you're really worried or concerned, since they basically haven't moved in price at all. But the upcoming reprint in Quarter Century Stampede should keep the prices relatively low. The next card we have is Snake Eye Ash. So to be fair, this used to be one of the craziest one-card combos in the game if you left it uninterrupted. It literally built full boards entirely on its own. However, the way that the current format is looking, Snake Eye cards won't be strong enough to really do that much. They lost the piece that connects them with the Dia Bellstar cards, with Original being banned, and Bonfire is limited as well, so the cards are going to be a lot less consistent. However, I do think that people still remember how crazy Ash was before, since it wasn't limited that long ago, and Flamberge is also a really strong card, so players want to be prepared in case Snake Eye is really ready to make some sort of a comeback. Of course, both Ash and Poplar went from 1 to 2, nothing super crazy, but it definitely does give the deck some more ways to start playing and trying to do something. Now, price-wise, Ash was an extremely cheap Ultimate Rare when it was limited. I think I literally picked up a couple of them for $5 each at locals. I'm pretty sure retail on them was like $6. However, I do think part of the jump with Ash was that we weren't really expecting the Snake Eye cards to be pulled off the list so early, so people kind of like panic bought them. With the Alties, they did jump up to around $25 to $30, but they've since settled back down really quickly to anywhere from $15 to $20. And then the other nice printing is the Secret Rare, but those are only a couple of dollars each right now. Definitely a card to keep an eye on, since I do think a lot of Snake Eye cards are just really good overall. I think Ulti Ash is going to stay around the price of something like Rhino Heart, around like $10 to $15, where it's this card you want to max out on it in the deck that it's used in, and the deck could theoretically be good with some ban list changes or new support in the future, even though the deck isn't doing anything right now at all. Overall, it's not a bad card to hold on to if you can grab them at the right price. Alright, so this is a bit of a different one. We have Dominus Purge. Now, Purge is sort of like a restrictive Ash Blossom. It only stops adding cards from deck to hand, including drawing them, but also if you use it from your hand, you are locked out of Dark Water and Fire Monster effects for the rest of the duel. So this isn't something that you could use in Ryziel or Malice, so it didn't see too much play last format. However, Purge is a card that has been used by a few strategies over the last year or so, including Melodious, Odeon, and then most notably Blue Eyes. I think a lot of players are speculating that Blue Eyes and Odeon decks are going to be top tier going into the next format, as they weren't hit on the list at all, but the decks around them got a lot weaker. Of course, Talents is at 1, so playing around Talents is marginally less important, but with Ryziel looking to probably play more copies of 7th Ascension and 7th Tachyon, I do think that Purge is going to be a really important tech choice for the decks that are able to make use of it. However, with this expectation that it'll see more play, a bunch of people have started to pick up their copies over the last day or two. Purge only has the one printing from the Infinite Forbidden, so it's old enough that the card probably isn't something that people are pulling out of packs at your locals or anything, but the card was around $40 last week, but over the last couple of days we've seen it shoot right up to around the $60 to $70 range. Unfortunately, you can't use this card against the Mulch Armies, but searching is such an important way of the game that Yu-Gi-Oh! Is played that Purge just always gets viewed as something you probably should play if your deck is able to do so. Hopefully this card does get a reprint in Battles of Legend or the Tins, but until then this is going to be another expensive staple right up there alongside Dominus Impulse. And finally, the last card we're taking a look at for today is 7th Tachyon. So of course, Ryziel and Malice both took pretty big hits on the ban list. Ryziel lost like 5 starters, with Bonfire going to 1, and Ice Sword and Ext all going to 2. I do think that with Bonfire going to 1, that was something that most of the player base saw coming, right? And it's in large part due to the release of 7th Tachyon in Maze of the Master. Basically, 7th Tachyon can search for a wider variety of things, but it does require you to play otherwise unusable cards in your extra deck, and you have to put a card from your hand back to the top of your deck when you activate this card as well. However, it's still pretty cool because you can search for 7th Tachyon with 7th Ascension, so theoretically you have a lot of different starters now. That said, 7th Tachyon has gone up notably after the release of the ban list. This is something that was seeing some play, but not like a crazy staple amount of play before, but now it's definitely going to be a 3 of in pretty much every single Ryziel deck. However, even looking past that, this is something that's going to be useful in other strategies, particularly decks like K9, which should be coming out in Justice Hunters later on this year, as well as Photons. This is a card that was trending downwards prior to the list coming out. The secrets were actually trending down to around $50 to $55 each. However, now that the list is out officially and the consistency hits to Ryziel were more severe than I think players were expecting, we've seen 7th Tachyon rebound back up to around the $70 mark. Now obviously the list was constructed in such a way to help Konami sell more Maze of the Master product, so it's something that players are going to be hunting for. This is definitely going to be one of the more expensive cards in the game for probably at least the next half a year. Alright guys, that is all I have for today's episode. YCS Houston, definitely an amazing event, and the ban list was absolutely phenomenal as well. Guys, there's so much more that I want to talk about, but we're going to save some of that for a market watch later on in this week. So if there's other cards that you guys see trending on the market as well that you guys want me to talk about and maybe give my opinions on, make sure you let me know. Anyways guys, that is all for today's market watch episode. Definitely hit that thumbs up button if you like the video, hit subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment in the comment section down below. And until next time guys, don't forget to hold on to your MST.TV.